So Jesse was a 58-year-old man in our town who was probably, by many standards, people might have said developmentally challenged. Jesse was the ambassador of our town. Jesse rode a 3-wheeled bike. Jesse wore a neon vest, and it was Jesse who was there to help with you with your cart. He was the one who was smiling. I'd honk and wave at Jesse. Well, Jesse passed away last week, and our whole town, and I'm getting shivers just telling you about it, our whole town has loved this man, and he has loved all of us. You know, Jesse might not have ever gotten a college degree, Aaron, but Jesse was out doing something every day. He was on the same street. Jesse didn't have all of the things that, you know, many of us are blessed with, but he made a difference in our town. He made a difference, and the outpouring of love has been phenomenal.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Aaron, and it's the Simply Overcoming podcast. Thanks for coming back, guys. I'm so excited to be back once again. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Today's guest, first of all, I'm really thankful to have Julie Sanders Keymer on the podcast today. And we've been working together for a couple of years now.
We have. And
I've really appreciated you from the moment I met you. It seems like you've always been in my corner, so I appreciate that about you. You're a very talented television host, but you do a lot of other things too. Talk to me a little bit about what you do.
Well, thank you, Aaron. And yes, I remember meeting you for the first time, and it was a pleasure. My husband and I enjoyed our visits, and it's been just great to work with you since then. So I have a degree in communications, concentration in journalism and public relations, and I have interned at a commercial TV station in Seattle during college, and I've worked as a sports feature reporter at a newspaper, been a general reporter, and I've done radio morning news bright and early, and so now I volunteer with a mission organization and, yes, host a TV show there. I've done interviews on a local TV show, and then I also work with dramatized audio Bible stories that are in all sorts of languages. So, yep, all over the board.
Julie, you are busy.
I'm blessed.
Oh my goodness. It's intimidating. You've done a lot. It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, hey, so first of all, I wasn't actually planning on releasing an episode on Tuesday, which was sort of a bummer because I've only missed one in the last year, but I'm really thankful that Julie came in last minute and to do this. But something happened to us the other night that really made both of us start to think, and I think we both were impressed that we needed to sit down and have a conversation about what happened. I'm going to let you start to tell that story, and then I can sort of tell them, what happened after. Mm-hmm. But what happened the other night? We were doing some filming together, and we had something happen.
Yeah, and it started even a week earlier. So we had been doing some filming for this mission organization, and we were going to be filming at the local nativity that was outside one of the area churches. And we showed up, and we looked around, and the church was all lit. There was Mary and Joseph, and there was the manger, and no baby Jesus. And so I said, Aaron, we need a baby Jesus. You can't have a nativity without a baby Jesus. And I called in to the church office, come to find out one of the pastor's daughter had actually donated her little doll, and someone else and I had done some videoing a year before, and right before Christmas last year, the doll was stolen. So here you and I are, it's cold and it's getting ready to rain, and we need a baby Jesus. So I got the idea to call the local Christian thrift store. They donated 3 dolls. And so you and I got going, and we did the filming that we needed to do. But as I said, it was cold, raining, and you're like, Julie, we got to get these cameras out of the weather. So we postponed it here to last week. So I showed up, I sat in my car, and as I came up to look at the nativity, I was like, is the baby Jesus doll still there? And it was. But I looked in the back, and I was still in my car with tinted windows, and I thought something looked a little different, but I wasn't quite sure. So you were getting the cameras already, getting me microphoned, all of that up and going. And behind the nativity, like I said, something looked kind of odd, and yet you and I didn't really see anything, and we hadn't really dialed into it, but it moved.
It started to move.
And you and I looked at each other, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, what's going on here?
What is going on?
So this man started talking to us, and bless his heart, he had been sleeping behind the baby Jesus there in the nativity set. And he said he was realizing that we were going to be filming, and you and I were kind of looking at each other like, what?
What do we do in this situation? And he said his name was Taylor, and he'd been sleeping there all day long behind the nativity.
And the night before.
Out in the pouring rain, or it was windy the night before. And it's funny, too, because I almost canceled that night, but I really felt like we needed to do it that specific night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so, it was really an interesting time to show up. If we would have been there the day after, chances are he probably wouldn't have been there.
But he was very gracious. He was coherent, and he got up and he said, do either of you have any bags? Well, Aaron, I am a bag lady. I love suitcases, bags, all sorts of stuff. And I always carried at least two huge, big trash bags for like leaves, like garden leaves. And so I just put 2 new in my car. And so then I also had a reusable bag. And so I had that. I dumped everything out, and he was trying to be very helpful to get out of our way. So here he had a hoodie up, so we didn't see his face, right? And he had a mask on, and he was there trying to get all of his things together. And then you and I were kind of looking at each other, because the first inclination this man's been outside. He'd been there all night long, all day. He probably needed the restroom. And so here you and I were with Taylor.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We were hanging out with Taylor, and so we had our filming that we needed to do. So I don't know, we were probably at that for 30, 40 minutes, and Taylor just kind of hung out and watched us do our filming.
Right, but I got on the horn, as I call it. I got my phone out and started calling for some help of people who could help us. And so the church door was locked. They opened the door and said that Taylor could go in and stay there. They offered that to him, and he went in and used the restroom. And I felt so badly because, again, I'm a bag woman, but I also usually have food in my car, and I didn't have anything there. But I think the immediate thing was, here's a man who is in need. And the irony of all of this, though, Aaron, here you and I are filming for a mission organization by the baby Jesus. You and I have come back a second time. Mm-hmm. And it's Christmas time. We're talking all about a baby being born many, many years ago, no place at the inn. And here's Taylor, no place to stay.
Yeah, no place to stay, sleeping behind the baby Jesus. Yeah.
So he actually came out. So here you are running the camera, and I'm in front of the camera, and we've got to do our filming that we needed to do. And Taylor just stood there and he watched. Mm-hmm. And so it was very interesting for me to be there and to have someone who, I don't know this man, but obviously he has needs. I don't know where he's come from. Found out he was from California, mm-hmm. and from a warmer part of California. And I'm like, oh, buddy, you're here where it's really cold.
Yeah.
But we struck up a conversation.
Yeah.
The 3 of us.
Yeah, we did. And I think what happened is we tried to get him a place to stay in the church, and one of the pastors or one of the elders offered to let him stay in the church for the night. But Taylor declined. Yeah, he did. He walked out, and he felt like it felt weird in there, is what he said.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah.
So he came out, and I remember we're there, it's cold, and I remember he said to us, well, maybe I should have stayed in there a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, yeah, here people are actually trying to help you.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting situation for me because I was there wanting to be encouraging to him. Mm-hmm. And here he was obviously in some kind of a need. I don't know what all of his needs are, other than he didn't have a place to stay.
Right.
So I then, again, knowing people who to call in the Valley where we live, and a friend of mine, she works at the Christian Aid Center. So I mentioned that to him, and I think you mentioned that to him, and he, for reasons, he declined that as well.
Right. He declined staying there. He didn't want to get the COVID test up the nose. So, I started realizing very quickly, and this is what you have to realize about some of these people who are in these homeless situations is, they have to want help in order to be helped. And, it's a sad sight to see, and there's so many people out there who have a desire to help the homeless, but they just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And you have to realize that there are some boundaries. You have to set some boundaries with these people. And first of all, he doesn't want to stay at the Christian Aid Center, which is actually a really nice facility. There's
Wonderful
nothing
facility.
wrong with it. He was given the option of staying in the church. He declined that as well. And so when we were done filming, you left, and Taylor stayed with me, and I sat and just conversed with him for like 45 minutes. He asked me if I could get him some Taco Bell, which I agreed to do because you had given him a small amount of money. And he wanted to use that money that you gave him to go get Taco Bell. So I took him to Taco Bell. He used his own money to get some food. And, if his story is accurate, he was kicked out of his home when he was 25 years old after he got out of college. His parents kicked him out. And apparently he's been homeless ever since, but he's also been in and out of a mental institution. So there's a lot of variables with this. And the thing is you don't always know if somebody is telling you the truth.
Yes.
So you have to take this stuff with a grain of salt. But this is where I had to draw a line, and that line was Taylor. He said that he really, really wanted a job, but he doesn't have a phone, and so he can't go online to fill out a job application. And as everybody knows, everything's online now, right? So I told him, Taylor, I will fill out a job application for you. I will give you a ride to the job, the interview, and if you get the job, I will give you 2 nights in a hotel, right? And what did he do? He declined, I don't know if I want to work a job. And it's like, okay, well, this is the situation that we're in. And it's sad. There's a lot of people that are in this situation. And, it really made me start to think, how can the listeners help somebody who is in need, a homeless person, but also set boundaries? Right?
Yes.
Without enabling them, how can you help them?
Yes. And see, what I had done while you were talking with Taylor, I was in my car making more phone calls to ask people for help. And I even said to the person there at the church, I said, my husband and I will pay for a hotel room, but I didn't want Taylor to know that. And so you and I were trying to get a ride to help this person. But what's interesting, the person that I called to help, who's a wonderful person, they said to me, Julie, I have done so much with homeless people, and they don't want to get help. And the other thing that was interesting, he said, we could pay for a hotel, but oftentimes, Taylor, that someone like Taylor, that a hotel will not accept them to come in and stay there. And see, for me, I'm like, here we're recording about baby Jesus in the inn and, no room in Bethlehem and all of this. And I'm thinking, well, if you have a hotel room, someone's paying for it. Why wouldn't you let someone like Taylor come in? Mm-hmm. So all of these things have past history with other people. And then here I am, my heartstrings are feeling for Taylor because I want to help him. But you know what? I feel that there are so many things that have come from all of this, because I called you and you were at Taco Bell to make sure everything was going okay. And I called my husband and he said, well, Julie, whatever you folks, you and Aaron think you need to do to help. I then went on and I was just kind of a deer in the headlights, and I had to go to the grocery store. And this story though, Aaron, here I am talking at a grocery store. A guy comes out, we're both wearing our masks, and he says, well, how are you? He was an employee. And I said, I'm well. I said, my friend and I just tried to help a homeless person. And he looked at me. And so the whole story about the stolen baby Jesus and all this comes out in the grocery store. And he said, that's on the homeless man if he refused to accept the help. And I said, well, that's exactly what my husband said. Literally, Aaron, I went around the aisle, and here is another male employee who heard me talking about all of this. And he's like, what's the deal with the baby Jesus and all of this? So here I had this whole nother conversation, and then some other people I know. So I think the interesting thing is that we all wanted to help. And at what point, like you said, do we also have healthy boundaries? But it also made me realize that I very well could be in Taylor's situation.
Yeah, and I just want to say it is we very well could be in that situation, and there's definitely some things in my past that makes me makes me understand a little bit maybe of where Taylor's coming from. Not to the extent that Taylor is dealing with, but I do understand. And one of the things that I was struggling with, Julie, and I haven't told you this, but when he started moving behind the manger, I really was just hoping that he would just get lost, to be honest with you, because I've had some really bad experiences with homeless people, and I'm very skeptical of homeless people. And, I kind of lump them all into this a lot of them into this one box. If they want help, there is help out there.
Yes.
There is help for them. Right. And so why are you homeless? What can I do to help you get you back on your feet? And if you won't accept those things, then our conversation is over. So I was, I had to do a little heart check there because I really just was hoping that he would just move on. I didn't want to have to deal with it.
So you have me who's like, oh, we've got to help this man and do all this stuff. And you're like, Julie, I'm not sure.
Julie is just over the moon. We're going to help this guy. And I'm just like, come on, I'm sick. Like, let him go on his way.
So that is the question. So tell me, why did you feel that way? What is your experience?
Well, I've never told people that I have ever been homeless because I haven't. My parents have always been there for me. There's always been a place for me to go. So I would say I maybe was a little displaced, a little bit of wandering, but I was never homeless. But I spent a lot of time with homeless people. I spent time hitchhiking, Washington, Oregon, California. I spent 3 months on the Pacific Crest Trail, just sort of walking 25 to 35 miles a day.
Wow, Aaron.
But along the way, there's a lot of hitchhiking. There's a lot of homeless people to hang out with. And so I've spent a fair amount of time with homeless people and underneath bridges. My 21st birthday, I actually spent underneath a bridge, Cajon Pass, just outside of LA, getting hammered and stoned with a homeless man underneath the bridge, right? So I understand I kind of feel like I understand how these homeless people think, and so that's why it's made me very skeptical. But I also have a heart. I have a heart for these people, and I want to help, but I don't really know how to help. And so running into this situation with Taylor really brought up a lot that was deep down inside that hasn't come up in a long time. And I really had to check myself, and I realized that I really do care for these people and I want to help them. But we can help them while still setting up boundaries, while still not enabling them.
Yes, because we can't make the decision for them. So what Taylor was telling us, I do not want to go to the Christian Aid Center where, yes, upon arrival, that they would probably swab his nose. And if he's just gotten out of a mental institution, they probably had to do that. So I understand that. However, my comment, you had that conversation, I didn't. But at some point, sometimes we have to have some flexibility to go, you know what, which is better, to be sleeping outside behind the baby Jesus in the nativity where it's cold, or having a lovely facility where I can have food and do all of that. So that's the thing. But I mean, Aaron, this is a conversation to be had about so many other areas, not just homelessness.
Yeah.
It's a fact of, why do we not accept that help, or why are we so stuck that, and I'm talking to myself here too. So it's not like I'm trying to fix everybody else, that it's
Yes.
that we all have these things. But to know about the places in our community, and I bet each person who's listening here probably, as I don't maybe know their particular city or their town or their whatever, but we all know where to go to for help. And I would say as Americans, we want to help people, and as a Christian, I want to do that as well. And but you can't, the old saying is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force the person to drink. So I don't know all of the reasons why, Taylor or some of the other people that you mentioned being under a bridge, why they have chosen not to get that help, and there are places here in our town that there's a homeless camp. And in order to be in the homeless camp, you cannot do any drugs. You can't do, to be drinking any alcohol. And for some people, they want to be doing that. Now with Taylor, I don't know. With you, I didn't feel like Taylor was on any substance.
I honestly, the impression that I got was, and it's sometimes hard to tell, but the impression that I got was he was a very smart guy.
Yeah.
We had some really deep conversation, and it didn't seem like he was on drugs. It didn't seem like he was doing drugs regularly. Yeah. Once he took his hood off, just getting a look at him, he really just looked like a normal dude that was down on his luck. But he wasn't willing to accept the gestures, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you. And I don't know that we can come to a conclusion, but I just I'm curious, what are your thoughts on why some of these people, and maybe you don't have an opinion, but why some of these people just will not take the help? I just I want to take a moment to thank, and, Lord knows these people aren't listening, but when I was on the PCT, I left with $500 to my name.
The Pacific Crest Trail.
Yeah, the Pacific Crest Trail. Thank you. And I left with $500 to my name, and I ran out of money really quick. And so I was trying to find a job, walking up and down streets, trying to find a temporary job for 2 or 3 weeks, which nobody really wanted to give me. But you know what? I had some help from some really nice people. I ended up getting picked up. I stayed at somebody's house. They were actually, they were Christians, and they brought me back to their home, and I worked for them for 3 weeks.
Good.
I worked really hard. I really changed the outside of their house, and they paid me a bunch of money. But, just the love that they had for me as a random stranger.
And how did you meet? I'm just curious. How did you meet?
This actually happened a couple times. One of the times it was through a local church.
That you had gone to?
That I had gone to. And then the second time they were Christians as well, but that was through a person that I ran into that said, let me call someone, right? So just walking up and down the street, somebody was like, well, what's going on? What do you need
What's
help
your
with
deal?
something? Right. And, I was dirty, and I stank, and I had a backpack.
That was going to be the mental picture that came through my mind is you want a job, but what do you look like?
Yeah. And I had the 20-year-old not so manly beard going on that just looked ratty and horrific. And these people really wanted to help. So I really appreciated their help. And I think back to the times that I spent with those people, and I really wish I could contact them because I never took their contact information. They hosted me for 3 weeks. Each one of them hosted me for about 3 weeks. And so I was very thankful for that. So anyway, what are your thoughts?
So let me go, before we move on to that though, did you have any contact with your parents at all during this time? Did they know where you were?
They did. Absolutely. They knew.
So this was my thought that came through my mind and it was interesting the other night. So I'm a woman, you're a man, Taylor's a man. So yes, I felt impressed to give Taylor some money, but I didn't want to give that to him. So that's why I gave it to you to give to him. And I had done what I could do. And so that's where you men needed to connect on all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother, a dynamic. But I wondered about Taylor's parents. I wondered about his mom, and I wondered, does this woman know where her son is? Because, you hear these stories of people who have disappeared, and they don't know where their child is, and there's been no contact for years. And sometimes the person shows up, and then sometimes the person doesn't. So that kind of went through my mind about all of that. But
Absolutely.
Why, before we go on to that, I do have a question just to bring it together with your story. Why did you decide to leave under the bridge? Why did you decide to move on in life?
I think that the Bible says that if you train up a child in the way he should go, when he's old, he won't depart from it. And the older I get, the more I realize that that's just so accurate. I mean, I had loving parents, and it definitely, my growing up years were definitely not perfect. There were some major issues, but at the end of the day, I had some loving parents that cared for me, and I knew that. And, there was a point in my life where I said I would rather die homeless under a bridge than be a part of society. And I was at that point. I did not want to be a part of society. And, taking this to a whole nother place, if nobody's heard, I don't know, maybe episode 8 of my podcast, I told my story, but, I attempted to shoot myself, and the gun did not go off for one reason or another. And then 3 days later, I shot myself in the leg by accident. And so I've got a rod in my leg with a bunch of screws and a plate.
Because you had to have surgery to have it fixed?
Mm-hmm, yeah. But, that was the beginning of my reality check, because my life was in a bad place, and I was hanging out with some very bad people. And the reason why I left to go and walk the Pacific Crest Trail was simply because I felt like I needed to get away from the bad situation that I was in and the bad people that I was hanging out with. And in some cases, I was a little afraid of just sticking around and sort of distancing myself from some of those people. So I think that in a way, the trail was a huge blessing for me. It really was. And it was a reality check. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a reality check of how I didn't want to live my life. Now, I'm not saying that I wouldn't want to go. If I had the opportunity, I would go walk the trail again. And hopefully that happens in my future. But, seeing some of the homeless people that I spent time with and, the time that I spent just hitchhiking around, it just seemed like my life had no meaning. It was very aimless. I was just sort of wandering around. And so I just realized that was not where I wanted my life to be. So that was the beginning of a change of lifestyle. Yeah.
Well, and I think there's a switch for many people that you realize, you know what, this is not going well. This is not what I want in my life. But for some people who have gotten so depressed or down in a pit or who knows what they have experienced. And that's the thing is I can't judge that person. I have no idea what they have gone through, but there is hope. There's hope that there is something better. And there's so many people out there for all sorts of organizations, who want to help people. I mean, I have a friend in New York City, and she worked in Harlem with students to make sure that they went to college. I mean, what an awesome program. But again, you have to make the choice. And so like with Taylor, Aaron, I don't know at what point, if he will make that choice, let's pray so. But the concern in your original question was back to what? How do we
help these people without enabling them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think for me is that I am an honest person. And so when someone tells me I need this, I need that, I will move mountains to try and help somebody. And my husband and I had a rental property. I'm a horrible landlord. I had an upstairs and a downstairs that we were renting, and I had a man who, the downstairs was a 1-bedroom, and he didn't understand why I couldn't rent to him with his 6 children or whatever and his wife. And I said, I'm sorry, but our septic system can't take all of that. And then there was this other man who had just come in from, or maybe it was the same man, had driven across the country, and he needed a place to stay. Again, I felt like he was Mary and Joseph here with baby Jesus, and my heartstrings are pulling at that. So, but I had people lie to me, and I figured that out. And it's like, you know what? You lie to me and it's over in so many ways. And I think that's the thing is be honest and say what your life situation is. We have a friend, and she's been a public defender in a major city. And she said it's been really interesting working with a lot of people who, they're so honest. They're like, yep, I did it. And that way she at least had honesty to work with the judge and the court system and to be honest about it. So I would prefer someone to be honest with me and say, this is where I am in life, than to come up with some harebrained story. And like with Taylor, to me, the story that he gave you sounds very valid, but didn't he at one point want a job, and then at one point he said he didn't want a job?
Yeah, I mean, he told me he wanted a job, but then when the opportunity arose and I offered to help him get one, then it was no bueno, I don't want a job.
Yeah.
So, I just...
So I'll turn the question on you. Having lived in that environment, which I haven't, but what would your suggestion be to someone who's watching and listening, and maybe they pass a homeless man daily as they go?
First of all, it's so easy to drive by one of those people that are panhandling and give them money, but don't give them money. And I'm serious. Now, if you have given them money in the past, I'm not giving you a hard time. Maybe the Lord tells you to give the money in a specific situation, but I feel that giving them money is enabling, period, because that money is going to go towards drugs, alcohol, or food to continue living homeless. If you want to help one of these people, you can give them food. You can give them a card for Subway. You don't have to actually go and buy them food. You can give them a card to Subway and they can go get their own food. But you can also offer to help them get a job. There are plenty of jobs out there right now. And so if they are willing, you have to gauge the situation. You have to see if they want help. And if they don't want help, yes, it's sad, but there's nothing that you can do about it. And so, you can pray for them, and you can be willing to support them. I gave Taylor my personal phone number. He's called me twice to ask for money. I told him no, but each time he called me, I said, Taylor, I cannot give you money, but if you want a job, you call me and we'll make that happen.
Good.
So he knows where he needs to go if he wants help to get a job. Mm-hmm. And that's all you can do. Mm-hmm. And so that would be my opinion. Giving him money is just not, it's not a good solution. And I think that unfortunately, and let's not try to get political at all, but the thing is you just can't coddle these people. You've had this thing happen to you, and we're going to give you some stuff, because that does not work. They have to be held accountable. People have to be held accountable. Life is not easy. We both know this. Life is not an easy thing. So you have to figure out how to live it. You can't be coddled. And so, let's help these people get over what they're dealing with, because as we know, 3/4 or more of all of the homeless people is from drug and alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
That is why they are in that situation. And so it's a sickness. That is a sickness, and they need help. And so my answer is we definitely shouldn't be rounding them up and putting them all in jail. That doesn't seem like it makes any sense, or prison or jail. But, there does need to be some accountability. And we need facilities to help these people out. But here's the thing. If you're a Christian, they always say that we are the church, right? The people are the church. Also, the Simply Overcoming sign is about ready to fall off the wall. And so this has happened 3 times now.
It's okay. We're going to continue to go despite the sign.
We are going to keep going despite the sign. But yeah. So what was I saying? We are the church, mm-hmm. right? And so you may say, man, my city needs more facilities to help these homeless mm-hmm. people. Why aren't you doing something?
Yeah. Yes.
You're saying my city needs to create some new facilities so that we can help these homeless people. Well, guess what? Mm-hmm. Things don't get done without people. So if you really want to help these people, if you have a heart for these people, then get out there and start helping them. Yes. There are already some facilities. These facilities exist.
Yes.
Help them get into a facility, or help them get a job if you want to help them. And here's the thing. If they don't want help, then there is nothing that you can do, and maybe that's where a professional comes in.
Now, there's the word, because that is the professional. So I have gotten myself into situations. I am not a trained social worker. Yeah, do you want to just go over there? Yeah, you go fix it. I'm not a trained social worker, Aaron, and so I don't know how to deal with a lot of these things that people have needs with. But there are people who are trained to do this. And so like here in our town, at the Christian Aid Center, it's a wonderful organization. Portland has a Portland Rescue Mission, and there are many different people who can help where I am not trained to do that. I can see someone who has a need, and I can know that there's a need. But like with Taylor, where the Nativity is, and where the Christian Aid Center is probably 2 miles or a little bit more away. And so he needed a ride closer. By you driving him to Taco Bell, that was closer, and you were willing to do that. Mm-hmm. So you took him there and you dropped him as close to the Christian Aid Center as and whatever rescue mission, just name your pick. But in our town, it's a Christian Aid Center. And he could then walk from there to get the help that he needed.
Yep.
And that's where I might not know what to do, but I know who to call. I know, and that maybe goes back to being aware of what is in your town. Being aware what departments, what churches, what organizations do have help, because in our town we have a thing called Blue Mountain Action Council that helps people find housing. We have Helpline. We have a free medical clinic, SOS Medical Clinic, where dentists and doctors, they volunteer their time to come in and provide medical care for people. We have the thrift store that I mentioned that helped us with the baby Jesuses. And we want to say thank you to some person donated those dolls. But at that thrift store, people can come in and say, you know what, I need to clean up my act here. And they will take you through the store and they will outfit you.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so maybe I think that there are situations where people legitimately just don't know that those facilities exist. So, if you do want to help a homeless person, maybe let them know that these things exist, and hope that they want help.
Right. But it comes a step further, and this is where it has to start inside. It has to start inside with having some gumption. And that's where, despite whatever has happened to these people, and again, I don't know Taylor's whole story. We were with him for an hour or whatever, and he didn't talk that much. But you have to make a decision and make up your mind to do something. So as I mentioned, after I said goodbye to you and Taylor, I went to this grocery store, and there was a marquee. So Jesse was a 58-year-old man in our town who was probably, by many standards, people might have said developmentally challenged. Jesse was the ambassador of our town. Jesse rode a 3-wheeled bike. Jesse wore a neon vest, and it was Jesse who was there to help with you with your cart. He was the one who was smiling. You would I'd honk and wave at Jesse. Well, Jesse passed away last week, and our whole town, and I'm getting shivers just telling you about it, our whole town has loved this man, and he has loved all of us. Jesse might not have ever gotten a college degree, Aaron, but Jesse was out doing something every day. He was on the same street. And so for me to have this experience of having no baby Jesus in the manger, you and I meeting Taylor, to be able to go and share about all of this with these 2 employees, and then to find out that Jesse had passed away. Jesse didn't have all of the things that, many of us are blessed with, but he made a difference in our town. He made a difference, and the outpouring of love has been phenomenal. So, and back to panhandling. So I've been blessed to have lived in many countries, and I've been able to travel to many countries, many third world countries. And there have been so many panhandlers and so many sad situations. And I know that as I say this, Aaron, you've traveled as well, and you've seen many people in other countries. There was one man, though, and he was on the streets of Hong Kong, and his torso, his legs were very small. His arms were very small. He was actually probably no more than maybe, 3 feet tall, maybe even that. But you know what? This man was on a crosswalk in Hong Kong. All these hundreds of people going by, shopping, cars, all of this commotion. And this man had a microphone, and he had a little boom box, and he had a dish there, a metal dish for putting coins in. So you might have thought this man was panhandling. But you know what? This man was singing in Chinese, and all these people walked by, Aaron. And here he is down on the ground, and all these people walked by. But this man was doing a job, the only job that he could do, and he was there singing to all of us. And the important thing is that we see people, even if you smile at somebody, you might not know what just smiling can do for somebody. And I'm blessed with 7 fingers. I was born this way. So I see people because I've got something different going on the outside, and many of us have something different going on the outside, and some of us have something going different on the inside, and some of us have both. But this man, I connected with him. He's singing away in Chinese. I got down on my knee, and I put my hands out so he could see that I had something going on too. And that was a connection that I had. I'm not fluent in Chinese. He's probably not fluent in English. He kept singing, and that was a connection that we had. So I think to bring this all around, there might not be something that you and I can maybe have done more for Taylor, but you and I saw him, and we did something. We tried.
Julie, you're bringing me to tears over here. I really appreciate you being on the podcast and sharing these things. I feel like this was really meant to be. This needed to happen, and I'm so glad that we were able to pull it off on such short notice. And the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Sure does.
And he works through us, right?
He sure does. And one thing I said to Taylor the other night is I said, you know what, Taylor, you found the best place to sleep. And I said to him, he's looking at me, and I said, you were here in the manger behind the baby Jesus, and you found the best place to sleep. And I said to him, Taylor, may I pray for you? And he said, well, I think you already have. And I said, yes, but may I pray out loud for you? And so, our paths might not have crossed, but again, what can we do for the people that are around us? We can direct them and we can try and help them. It's their decision, but we can certainly be kind to them.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Julie, for being on the podcast. Is there any way that is there anything that you want to pitch on here? Maybe the Bible and Living Sound or something that you're working on, something that you want to mention?
Yeah, so I'm involved with the Bible and Living Sound. We're the original dramatized audio Bible stories for people of all ages. And it's not just a reading of the Bible, but it's actually here Mary and Joseph, so the nativity and all of that. So you hear the clip and the clop of the donkey, and Mary saying to Joseph, we've got to get to Bethlehem. This baby's coming. And so it's a dialogue. It's radio theater, and it's 56 hours, 450 Bible stories. We have them in English, Thai, Japanese, Mandarin Chinese, Bambara, West African language, African French, and we're doing Turkish, Spanish, and Urdu. So
wow.
So I'm spending a lot of time right now with headphones and listening to the stories. But yeah, it's a blessing, Aaron, and may we all be a blessing to anybody that we come in contact with.
Yeah, that is fantastic. So people can visit the website. What is it?
BibleandLivingSound.org.
Excellent. BibleandLivingSound.org. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the podcast up to this point. For those of you who don't know, we're filming these things now, so you can go to YouTube. You can watch them if you'd like. And, if you want to look at this face, you're welcome to do so. And
it's a great one.
Apologies.
And Aaron, no, don't apologize for anything. And thank you for sharing your story. And I'm glad that you have shared that, because I'm a firm believer that we do need to share, because that's where we have compassion and empathy. And thank you for inviting me to be here. This actually has impacted both you and me very strongly.
Wonderful. Yes, it has. Yes. And you know what? We could do a whole other podcast talking about that.
We could rattle on.
We're going to let everybody go. Thanks for listening. And until next time, have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.